Hello, and welcome to Leadership as a Philosophy, Not a Checklist. This is the fourth in our series on U.S. Army military leadership manuals. Remember, as with everything else, this is an iterative process. So what that means is you need to go back and watch the 1948, the 1951, and the 1958 in order to get full context. Because what I'm doing is commenting on what has changed, what's adjusted, what's been dropped, what's new, all that sort of stuff. So this is the second time. I'm getting better at these, but when I first started, I was trying to just do a summary and all that sort of stuff, but it was ineffective, I think. So if you start watching this and feel like you're missing something, it's because it's contained in the other videos. So don't think that I've lost my mind. You as the viewer have to do some extra work. I'm teasing, but not really. All right. So no slides on this one because what I want to talk about is really a couple of changes specifically from 1958, because in the first three documents, they were sort of wrestling with the idea that anybody could be a leader, but only certain people could be leaders. In this one, it's a little clearer. And what I'm going to do is just basically spend some time focusing on the general ideas, because the second 2/3 of the manual are basically the same as the 1958. The intro part is different. So we'll just proceed. I apologize for the scrolling. Also, I apologize because I guess YouTube has decided to throttle back frames per second. So some people have told me they're getting this at 480 FPS. I'm recording it in 1080p. But YouTube is either restricting it or putting everything at 720 because they assume everybody's watching on their phone, which you may be as well. But I apologize for the video quality. It's out of my hands. I'm going to try to find a different platform. Anyway, so military leadership, great. Introduction. Nothing's changed in the introduction from the 1958 version, but this is where things get a little crazy. So here's our definitions. Military leadership, leadership traits, principles, indicators, great. Effective unit, okay. Now, here's where things get funny, right? And so you notice that this is sort of a portent of things to come. So, definition of a leader. In technical military terminology, a person in charge of a unit smaller than a detachment. In the broad general sense, any person in a position of responsibility who influences and directs others. I noticed the difference between this and 1958. 1958 said that you could have anybody at any rank in any position that basically exhibits leadership characteristics. This is saying that a leader is only if you're in a position of responsibility. So I disagree, and we don't see any evidence of that, and that's where 1958 got it right. You can have somebody that's a brand new soldier that's got leadership ability and has no authority over anybody, and people are listening to. All right. Next, commander. The person by virtue of his office and formal designation or succession under fixed principles established by law or regulations is assigned the responsibility of directing the activities of a unit, a detachment, or comparable sized or larger unit. Okay. Now, this is where things get fun. Again, note, while in a technical sense, the distinction is made between leaders, commanders and leaders, there is no distinction in the broad sense. If the commander or leader is to be effective, they must demonstrate the leadership traits and apply the leadership principles discussed in this manual. So this is where things get funny, right? Because there have been plenty of examples. I'm trying to get this just a little bit wider. There we go. There have been plenty of examples where the commander was not a leader. How do we solve that problem? It's not by changing the title. This is what I talked about in the very beginning. This is the problem. The problem is we need to find people that are leaders and put them in command positions. because then they will be the same. Then the leader and the commander will be the same. And that's where we're missing, because now we put somebody in a command position, and because they're in a command position, then they must be a leader. No, it's not true. It doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. Then we go command. That's easy. Now here's the fun part again. Management. Oh, now we're starting to see management, because you hear the term leader and manager. We've talked about that ad nauseum in previous videos. So management, the process whereby the resources of men, money, material, time, and facilities are utilized to accomplish the missions and tasks of the organization. Okay. The functions of management are planning, organizing, directing, coordinating, and controlling. The functions of the manager are establishing objectives, motivating, communicating, innovative, maintaining cooperation, developing subordinates, and making decisions. Although attempts are made to differentiate between management and leadership, the objectives are identical. In the main, the roles of manager and leader are inseparable. So this is the beginning of the descent into the infernal realm, okay? Because what did we say the definition of management is? Managers sustain or maintain systems in order to sustain the organization. Leaders attune competence and environmental hierarchies in pursuit of a goal. So right here in this thing, the Army goes crazy. Functions of manager are planning. No, they're part of planning. Organizing, directing, that's leadership. Coordinating, leadership, management. Controlling, leadership. Functions of the manager are establishing objectives, that's leadership. Motivating, leadership. Communicating, well, that's everybody. Innovating, not so much for a manager. Maintaining cooperation, leadership, because that's vigilance. Developing subordinates and making decisions. Those are all leadership functions right there, and they're ascribed to management. There's the problem, right? Because where is maintaining systems? Where is maintaining the organization? Where is doing all the logistics? Where's all? That's what managers do, right? And so this right here, terrible assumption. And then future iterations go off of that assumption. I don't understand where that came from, because nowhere in the previous manuals does it talk about, here's what a manager is. It's not talk about managers. Yeah, you've got to manage your resources as a leader. And you've got people that are in charge of that. That's why you need subordinate. That's why you need management types. But the managers are not running around directing. No, that's the leader's job. So sad to see, because a bunch of these should be over here under leader. Okay, so we're going to scroll down. All right, so interesting characteristics of leadership. So the elements of leadership are the leader, the group, and the situation. Okay, so I say that's fine, but realistically, and what's nice here is they say that the group is a bunch of individuals. Sure, it's the competence hierarchies. So the competence hierarchies in your organization are individuals, teams of teams, and your whole organization. So yes, that's the group, but the group is full of a bunch of different competence hierarchies. All right, situation is what? The environment, the goal, and then obviously the leader. But I'm not sure that the leader is an element of leadership. It's a person, sure. Yes, you have to have a leader to go get, you don't necessarily have to have a leader, but if somebody is going around and attuning the competence and environmental hierarchies in pursuit of the goal, so the group and the situation, then yep, there's your thing about the leader. All right. Now, what's interesting here about this leadership quote, the earliest studies of leadership concentrated on the person of the leader. For centuries, man inherited his position of headship or won it by virtue of his physical strength or compelling dominant personality. Gradually, a belief developed that leadership could be acquired and that certain qualities or characteristics were invariably associated with leadership. Many studies were undertaken to uncover any single trait which was characteristic of all leaders or the combination of all qualities. The many lists proposed by authorities reveal many differences of opinion, right? So one fact, however, has emerged. Although heredity, as in all aspects of human behavior, probably does play a partial role in leadership, it is not the overriding factor. Experience, learning, and environmental factors are of considerably greater importance in leadership development than heredity. So this heredity thing, okay, you can't go have the President of the United States and, somebody else, and then they have a kid, and that kid is now a leader. No. But you're born with certain characteristics. I am not sure, because we have shown, right, experience, learning, and environmental factors are considerably greater importance. If you go back and look at all the videos that we've shown, all of those people that we showed that have leadership ability or the leadership talent, different backgrounds, different economic situations, everything about them was different. But that talent still coalesced out. And there isn't a one characteristic. What's the one character? What are the characteristics? Integrity and empathy, humility and vigilance. So everybody's looking for one thing, and it's just not that simple. All right. So it's once again, this assumption is a little bit too blithe. All righty. Now, I got this big wall of green here, and this will be fun. I'm going to try to make this good. But it says authoritarian and persuasive leadership. So it says, although we live in a democratic nation and prize highly the democratic process by which decisions are made and governmental leadership is exercised, the military leader must recognize that military forces are maintained to provide for national defense. An army is, of necessity, organized on a non-democratic basis, or basic, with a hierarchy of leaders, each in his own sphere, charged with making decisions and executing them. So this is where things get all confusing, because it basically says the military leader's approach, therefore, is essentially authoritarian, not persuasive, although they may on occasion find the persuasive approach more feasible. But then it says so. So the assumption is that the army military leader is authoritarian. Okay. But then it goes right after this. It says, above all, the good military leader will cultivate dignity and a proper mixture of decisiveness and will avoid arrogance. They should always recognize any special competence possessed by subordinates and take advantage of that competence by consulting them whenever possible. So you're saying that the military leadership or authoritarian, the military leadership is authoritarian, but you should talk to everybody and ask. Here's the thing. When you start trying to describe a leadership ability or the way that we're going to use this leadership approach, we've talked about this before. You might use this, you might have a 10-minute span where you use 6 different leadership styles. You might have to get on somebody's case and be a little authoritarian. But most of the time, it's go attune the competence environmental hierarchy, pursuit of the goal, find the best person, find the competencies, get them all tuned up, and they'll go off and do it. You have to make the decision, sure. You're the one that has, you're the person that's at the bottom line when everything, when the rubber hits the road, whatever you want to say. But no, the Army doesn't work great if somebody's walking around just pointing and yelling. It doesn't work that way. My entire time that I was in, I only got that pointing and yelling like 3 or 4 times. The rest of the time it was, hey, here's what we got to do. Let's go do it. And whatever. All right, so let's get down to here. Here we go again. Leadership is an art. Art is defined as a skill in performance acquired by experience, study, and observation. Leadership can be acquired and developed in varying degrees. That's good. By anyone properly motivated and possessing the necessary mental and physical capabilities. One's leadership ability is influenced by their willingness to study, practice, and apply sound leadership techniques. So this is actually a little bit better, that leadership is an art. So it can be acquired and developed in varying degrees by anyone properly motivated. So that means that even if you're properly motivated, you still might not be a good leader. And remember, we talked about that in the other document. As long as you have a good character, you're going to not be terrible. But you still might not be a good leader, because if we're saying it's an art, which it is, it's a creative ability, then your artistic ability is going to be widely varied, and there's going to be a whole lot of it that's not, right? Hey, I've got, I can do a rainbow. Great. I got my Roy G. Biv going. Perfect. All right, now go do some famous painting. Go do a Rembrandt. Nope, can't do it, right? Those people are singular. It's the same thing with leaders. Now, this one right here, I completely disagree with, and it makes me cranky that they got away with publishing this. So the climate of leadership. The commander exerts great influence upon the climate of leadership existing within a command. True. But does not establish this climate of leadership per se. False. Their influence is felt through the manner and degree to which they cause leadership to be practiced. The climate of leadership, sometimes called the leadership environment, is an aggregate result of all the influence and practice of leadership by all leaders in a command. It is the sum total of all leadership existing within a command. If you're the boss, if you're the commander, you're responsible for the leadership or the environment in your organization. If you're in charge of 15,000 people, you're responsible for the environment. If you're in charge of 4 people, you're responsible for the environment. This right here is saying that you do not establish the climate of leadership per se. False. That should be like your first or second goal immediately. Right? This is what did we say the definition of leadership is? Environmental incompetence. So you're going to establish the leadership environment. I'm not going to allow anybody to be yelling and screaming at people. Not going to allow any sort of sexual harassment. Not going to allow any of that. I'm not going to do it. Everything's going to be positive. Blah, blah, blah. And then you got to go around and check all that sort of stuff. But this is to me, this is ridiculous. You own the environment. Whatever level you're at, you own that. And so if you got a bunch of toxic leaders talking crap about people, their first response is to fire people, blah, blah, blah. That's you. That is you. You own the environment. If you've got a toxic, negative, nasty work environment, it's you. It's funny. I told somebody the other day I was working on trying to start a leadership consulting business. And they said, oh, so you're one of those people that shows up and fires everybody. I said, no, most likely it's the leader that's the problem. So that's who should be fired. And they went, wow, that's revolutionary. Anyway, so let's come down here. So this is a great thing. So supervision, vigilance, right? They got this 100% right. Good leader will undoubtedly find that they will spend much more time in the supervision of action which is underway than they will in the formulation and issuance of action orders. To supervise properly, they must develop sufficient proficiency in an area which they are checking to be able to recognize whether work is proceeding satisfactorily. They must accomplish supervision in such a manner that the progress of work in support of actions and orders is checked without unduly harassing subordinates. Yes, absolutely. Leader continually evaluates their unit. A leader must learn to evaluate their unit continually in light of the 4 indicators of leadership: morale, esprit de corps, discipline, and proficiency. This evaluation provides a practical approach in determining leadership problems that exist in the unit, the effectiveness of the leader, and the probable combat effectiveness of the organization. Take this and apply it to any organization that exists anywhere. It's 100% correct. 100% on the money, right? Say, here's what needs to be done, and then you got to go spend a bunch of time checking. And if you've done a good job formulating your orders and formulating your decisions, not just in the Army, but anywhere else, and you're clear and you've thought through all the contingencies, then you go and check and make sure that people understood what you wanted to do. And then you go evaluate. How's the morale? You walk in a room and it feels like there's a cloud thunderstorm. Oh, there is something wrong in here, and let me find out what it is. That's the environment. You own it. So these past 2 little things, 100% flawless. I couldn't recommend any of them except for take out commander and put boss or person in charge or whatever, and combat, and this is perfect for any organization. flawless. That's the vigilance in a nutshell right there. And they never say it. Makes me so mad. Okay, I'm going to speed ahead a little bit too. Right, so this is human behavior. Now, this is a neat little thing. Talks about different human behaviors and all that sort of stuff. But this is what I find really interesting. Leader actually maintains close personal contact with only a relatively small group, regardless of the number of people ultimately controlled by the organization. They must depend upon that small group to make their will known and execute their purpose. The success of a group depends on the leader's capability to promote effective relationships between himself, the group, individual members of the group. The environment. Such conditions will develop an atmosphere which will result in highly motivated groups and individuals working as a team, mutual confidence and respect. Absolutely. Therefore, the leader must understand the importance of this mutual interaction, how it influences and in turn influenced by situations. All efforts must be directed towards creating a condition that will contribute to the accomplishment of the mission. So that's the environment. So you take that and then go up here and you've basically got leadership in a nutshell. Yeah, you've got your team. So you're a CEO in charge of an organization with 10,000 people. So then you got all your vice presidents. Well, where should you be 4 days out of the week? Going and checking on on different divisions and departments. Right? Because you've got all your vice presidents, they're running the show. Your job is to go check. And then make sure, hey, I put this word out. Did the word effectively get out to the lowest person? You're in charge of 10,000. Go to some team in the most remote part of the district or the farthest part away from wherever the headquarters is and ask them, hey, what's going on with this thing? I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Well, you got a communication problem. But the only way to do that is to check. You can't sit in your office and go, well, I've put out these great words and now they're going to just propagate on the wind. But this is great. Then it talks more about human behavior. I'm sorry for the scrolling. But we're going to get down here. The leader's role. Now, this is interesting. I'm going to read this really quick. I apologize for all of you that are watching. I have several people that listen. And so I'm reading this out loud for them. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to launch my website. And I'll have all these posted so those people can then go download these things. So the leader's role. The leader must first of all know themselves. Correct? That's vigilance, right? To do so, they must have the mental courage to evaluate their strengths and weaknesses in terms of moral, physical, and mental characteristics. Okay? The leader must seek an awareness of their image as viewed by members of their command. Next, the leader must understand and be able to recognize the individual differences and the people that serve under them. Correct? Each person has their own personality and is affected differently. The leader must be able to recognize the types and analyze individuals so that the proper appeal or approach can be selected, which will cause the individual to respond willingly in a way which the leader desires. So notice this is a complete contradiction to the authoritarian leadership. Right? If you're an authoritarian, you're not doing this. But it says the army is authoritarian, which is wrong. Well, I mean, it could be. The leader's understanding of human behavior patterns, of individual differences, and the drive for satisfaction provides a good basis for the establishment of good working relationships. Right? So if you're taking care of your people, this last thing, their subordinates will tend to feel they can depend on them, that they're interested in their welfare, and they'll adjust more readily to their military environment, and in the end, the results should be efficient, properly motivated military unit. Yeah. I mean, correct. But the problem is who is this person, right? Who is this person that's going to look at themselves, spend a lot of time working on their people, right? We keep cranking out all these people with systems and numbers and PowerPoint slides and charts and wonderful, wonderful thoughts and ideas, but somebody's got to go get to know the people. And yeah, you don't have time. I think that I heard somewhere that you can basically, well, I can't remember. I don't even want to quote that because I'm not sure what the source is. Now, I'm going to get down here. So leadership traits. This is the same 14, but I'm going to show you a little bit of a difference. So here's the leadership traits. And remember the 1958 one, they talked about how, hey, these traits are, part of being a leader. Same thing here. As a result of this survey, 14 traits were isolated, which those leaders tended to hold in common though in varying degrees. It appears highly doubtful that the mere possession of these traits was sufficient to make these leaders successful. Yet at the same time, there appears little doubt that the absence of these traits will hinder one from becoming a successful leader. Those traits are those which could be desired by any good soldier regardless of rank. So that, remember, if we take these 14, and we did it in the 1951, we boil down the 14 traits. It's humility, integrity, vigilance, empathy. Or humility, integrity, empathy. There's no order. They're all the snake, right? So this is absolutely correct. They got it right. They got it right. It's right here. It's perfect. If you have the good characteristics and no talent, you're not going to be bad. But if you have the talent and not the characteristics, disaster. It's right there. I'm just laughing because I had come to that conclusion a year ago, and now I'm just reading this in this thing that they figured out in 1965, which proves what? Exactly what I've been saying all along, that this is not my idea. This has been around a long time, and people have just forgotten about it. And then here, I love this right quick. It should be recognized, however, that the leader's goal, personalities of the people with whom they're working, and the circumstances of the specific situation will have a profound effect on which particular trait or traits need the most emphasis. Yes. But that's why the logo for this whole project is an Ouroboros with humility, integrity, empathy, and vigilance, and it's a snake. So you might have to be more empathetic, but you still have to have integrity and vigilance and humility. You might have to be humble, but you got to make sure that you're not too humble. So it's this thing, and this is exactly right. You don't come in, well, I'm just going to have bearing for this situation. Oh, what the heck, But like I said, go back and look at 51 for the breakdown. Now, real quick, I'm going to show you one more thing, and then that's sort of the end of this, because then it gets into what we already know. So I want you to think about this very carefully. Integrity. To develop personal integrity. I love this one because the examples of how to develop these traits are pretty good. But we should have those as a leader anyway. Now think about what I'm saying. To develop personal integrity, practice absolute honesty and truthfulness at all times. Be accurate and truthful in all statements, both official and unofficial. Stand for what you believe to be right. And whenever you are tempted to compromise, place honesty, sense of duty, and moral principles above all else. Absolutely correct. So take that, and how do you juxtapose that with loyalty? Be quick to defend your subordinates from abuse, sure. Never give the slightest hint of disagreement with orders from your senior when relating instructions to your subordinates, okay. Practice doing every task to the best of your ability, sure. Never discuss the personal problems, absolutely. Stand up for your country, army, unit, seniors, subordinates, and associates when they are justly accused. Never criticize your seniors in the presence of subordinates, and be discreet in discussing command problems. So never give the slightest hint of disagreement with orders from your senior when relating instructions to subordinates. Well, here's the problem. What if their orders are crap? What if they're telling you to do something immoral? What if they're telling you to do something that's unethical? What if they're making you compromise? What if you're going, well, we're going to cheat? That violates this. So that's why I honestly think that the ideal, the loyalty has to be to some sort of higher ideal, not another human being. Anyway, so then the rest of these, we basically go on to, unselfishness. So unselfishness, I love the definition of how to develop it here, except for one thing, because this is humility and empathy. So to develop unselfishness, avoid using position or rank for personal gain, safety, or pleasure at the expense of others. Avoid? No, never. Be considerate of the problems, military and personal, of your men and assist them where appropriate. Give credit to your subordinates for work well done. Great. So that one, number 2 there. Remember I told you about the soldier that was going out to do something in the parking lot of their unit. It turns out the wife's having a miscarriage, goes to his officer, says, I need to go take care of my family. Officer says, no, you have to stay here. What? How did that even happen, right? How is that even allowed? Okay, and then that's sort of the end of that. And what happens after that is the same principles that we know, and then it gives some examples of how to do leadership in different circumstances, which is useful. But I just wanted to show that it's sort of what I really enjoy about this document specifically is that they did a pretty good job at catching up to some of the things that were missing in the earlier versions, and they got rid of some of the ambiguity and confusion. Other thing that's great about this, 58 pages long. That's it. Probably could cut some stuff out. You know, it's one of those things where I honestly think that these manuals should be something, you know, a really tightly constructed topic that can be discussed for a week. You know what I mean? Because what we're trying to do is not make things a checklist. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm having a lot of fun doing this series. The next one's going to be 1973, where things get a little squirrely. But like I said, I hope that you're having a fun time watching these things. Anyway, thanks so much for watching if you've made it this far in the video, and I hope you have a great day.